Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wholesale Change. It's the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we offer thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you. Because if you've joined this call, you're probably a wholesale change agent too. My name's Ian Heller. I'll be your co host today, along with my business partner, the lovely, talented, and brilliant Jonathan Byam, PhD. Jonathan, how are you today, my friend?
Delighted as always to work with my lovely and talented, incredibly nice and creative, brilliant partner.
Oh, pshaw, little old me. Thank you, Jonathan. Hey, we're gonna have some fun today, aren't we?
Big time. It's a
Yeah,
it's a wholly dedicated Colorado show today.
that's right. Don's in Colorado. You're in Colorado. I'm in Colorado. We met for lunch actually to prepare for this show, which is unusual. We don't normally get to do that with our guests.
There's like two distributors in Colorado.
There's more than that.
There's
There's
more than
more
that.
than that. Yeah. Um, okay, good. So, look, we've got a great discussion coming for you. Thanks for joining us. Before we go, we got to pay some bills, though. So let's do a little bit of business. Today's episode of Wholesale Change is brought to you by our upcoming conference, Applied AI for Distributors. It's June 24th through 26th in Chicago. It's going to be an amazing event. Every distributor needs to send someone to this event. I mean, AI is here. Here's how you apply it. Here's how you build a competitive edge, or just as important, prevent from your company from falling behind. We're covering some fascinating topics. AI in action. How do you combine human and artificial intelligence to build a competitive edge? We'll have more than 25 AI enabled technology companies talking exactly about the AI that they provide to improve distributor performance and productivity. A lot of speed networking. I mean, this is the place to be for AI and distribution. Some fantastic speakers and panelists. Noelle Russell was just named Thinkers 360's #1 global thought leader on agentic AI. She's keynoting. Trent Gillespie's there. He's with Amazon. He did a lot of their last mile work. Today's guest, Don Sarno, is going to be keynoting. He'll talk a little bit about what he's going to be presenting at the event. Janet Zelenka, brilliant CIO, CFO with Ascendant, and most recently Stericycle, is going to be leading a panel that includes Paul Kennedy, who's the CEO of DSG Supply, Tracy Dool, who's a managing partner at CXO and currently the interim CIO at Bostwick Braun, and Dina Stanton, who's a VP of compensation at Kyndryl. So, look, I mean, this is just one of those events where you just need to find someone to go. It's tickets are selling fast. Hope to see you in Chicago. Wholesale Change is also brought to you by Continuum. Managing returns in wholesale distribution has always been complex, costly, and challenging, but Continuum is changing all of that. By leveraging cutting edge AI technology, Continuum simplifies the returns process, capturing accurate return data, automating clear communication across every step, and helping distributors recoup lost vendor credits. The result: happier customers, empowered employees, and more profitable operations. We're excited to have Continuum presenting and exhibiting at our upcoming Applied AI for Distributors conference in June. Discover firsthand how Continuum can transform your returns process with ERP integrated automation. Book your personalized demo today at gocontinuum.ai. And if you mention DSG when booking your return, you'll qualify for 20% off implementation fees. Did you hear that, Jonathan? 20% off implementation fees by mentioning us. Continuum is B2B returns made easy. Today's show is also brought to you by Epicor. Technology should empower your distribution business, not complicate it. That's the principle. Sorry, I am on the wrong ones. I'll come back to that one. It's also brought to you by Net at Work. Technology should empower your distribution business, not complicate it. That's the principle Net at Work has championed for 25 years. With over 450 technical experts, Net at Work specializes in helping wholesale distributors optimize their operations. From CRM and business automation to advanced ERP systems, they provide comprehensive solutions that streamline complex distribution challenges. Their approach goes way beyond implementation. Net at Work helps distribution companies scale efficiently, leveraging modern cloud technologies to improve inventory management, sales processes, and operational effectiveness. Reach out to Net at Work at 1-800-719-3307. That's 1-800-719-3307, or visit netatwork.com. Net at Work, advancing your business through smart technology. As you'll hear today, leading distributors like Sonepar are making major moves to modernize their sales experience. But digital transformation isn't just for global giants, it's within reach for every distributor. At White Cup, we bring CRM and business intelligence together into one purpose built platform designed specifically for the distribution industry. We help sales teams turn data into action so they can identify the right opportunities, serve customers more effectively, and drive profitable growth. Whether you're just getting started or looking to level up your digital strategy, White Cup makes it easy to take that next step. Learn more at whitecupsolutions.com. White Cup is also presenting and exhibiting at our upcoming show. Now I got to go back since I had these out of order, Jonathan. I'm order impaired today on my handouts. Okay, so today's podcast is also sponsored by Epicor, a software company that has helped thousands of wholesale distributors for more than 50 years to integrate their business functions into one ERP system. Because of their deep experience in distribution, they understand your world and your unique challenges. Epicor ERPs are designed to help you operate more efficiently today while preparing you for whatever comes next. They will transform your ERP from a system of record to a system of insights and actions with an easy to use, practical, outcome focused, and responsible AI. Epicor solutions provide distributors like you with a consolidated ERP that is ready to use out of the box and allows for long term growth. If you're interested in new technology, they'd love to chat with you to understand what you're looking for. You can reach out at epicor.com/distribution. Epicor.com/distribution. Okay, we're through the business. Let's get to the show. I'd like to welcome in today's guest, Don Sarno, who's the Senior VP of Digital Enterprise for the Americas for Sonepar. Don, hello, my friend. How are you today? And thank you for joining us.
I'm great. Good morning, and I guess good afternoon to our East Coasters. So,
Yeah, it is that time of day already, isn't it?
yeah.
So, hey, first of all, to the audience, if you have questions for Don, please send them in. Use the Q&A button below. We're usually run out of time for questions, so if you have them, I suggest you get them in early. But Don, let's start with your background. Why don't you tell us, where you came from, how you got into distribution, where you went to school, how did you get to the position that you're in today?
Yeah, it's always an interesting question. How do we get into distribution, right? That's always the fun question. But I started as an electrical engineer at the University of Colorado in Boulder. So I've been a Coloradan my whole life, which is unusual for those of you in the Colorado area, right? So been here an awful long time, never found a reason to leave. In electrical engineering, I started my career actually on satellite systems, working for the government, NOAA specifically on their satellites. And I always joke I fell into software because I got bored with electrical engineering on satellites. And it's always a fun topic when you talk to people. They're like, "You got bored working on satellites? How can that be?" But if you're familiar with the electrical engineering space and specifically billion-dollar satellite systems, it's a pretty slow-paced, meticulous work intentionally, right? We don't want to launch a satellite into space that fails. Although SpaceX is changing that a little bit with their approach, fail fast, right?
Well, to be fair, I mean, I think it's just intuitive that satellites aren't as interesting as distribution.
Yeah, it's a logical transition from satellite systems to distribution.
Yeah.
So I actually fell into an amazing opportunity. I was the third employee for Eclipse back in the day in Boulder. Sorry, third employee in Boulder for Eclipse, working with Scott Rudersdorf out of his garage. Believe it or not, it was long enough ago that I think we had 7 live customers and 15 in the process. So that's how long, and that's how I got into distribution, was through Eclipse back in the startup days of Eclipse. I spent a long point of my career at Eclipse in engineering, specifically software development, and then found my way into leadership through the growth of that organization and then the acquisition of Intuit. I always joke Intuit was the company that taught me how to be a leader, whereas Eclipse was the company that taught me how to be an engineer, right? Great experience at Intuit through Activent. So spent some time with Activent, and then took my journey a little differently. I liked the startup environment. I wanted to help companies find their way with agile software development and their transition. So I found a local company in Arvada here and spent 5 years as their COO and CIO as well. And then, back in 2016 actually now, Sonepar approached me with an incredible opportunity to lead up their application development space. And I've been here ever since. And
So Don, I've found that the 3 best backgrounds for software, besides software, music, physics, and electrical engineering.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I might add math to that.
Oh, math, fair enough.
Mathematicians are quite good as well, but I agree. Yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah. So yeah, and I got into software. Sorry, just why did software appeal to me? And I could make a real difference rapidly, which is
Yeah.
pretty relevant to today's topic when we think about AI, especially. It's all about bringing value to people in their day-to-day lives that makes a difference fast, right? And so the pace of play intrigued me. I don't know that I knew what I was signing up for when I said pace of play back then, and today it just gets faster and faster, right? So.
And so what's the scope of your responsibilities at Sonepar today, Don?
Yeah, so I am responsible for the digital enterprise of America. So that's Canada all the way down to our friends in South America. So if we think about the countries, Canada, US, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, and Chile are the countries that I'm responsible for in the digital enterprise. And it's everything from traditional infrastructure IT that you would think about, right? I say keep the lights on, right? Through the digital transformation with both associate and customer experience included in that. So probably a traditional CIO role. We don't use the CIO title in Sonepar, but I would say
Right.
it's a pretty traditional CIO role with the majority of focus on digital transformation.
Wow. So things are moving fast right now in your world, right? I mean, digital transformation has been going on for a while, but new technologies mean there's always something new to look at, right? And what do you see as some of the main challenges in digital transformation for distributors, and how are those challenges evolving?
Yeah, I think three major areas, and you're right. I mean, even in the last 4 years alone, the pace of play has increased significantly beyond, I think, even what we could have imagined, right? But the three main challenges to me are tradition. What do I mean by that? There's a way we've done things forever, right? And so it really becomes a people challenge. How do we get people to want to do things differently? And the second challenge is then that means it's on us. It's our responsibility as technologists to provide solutions that actually make a difference. I think all too often we say, go enter your order online. Why, when I can pick up the phone and talk to an expert or send an email to an expert or come to your counter? Why would I want to transform and do business digitally with you? So what's the value? What's in it for me? I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, by the way, with
Mm,
start with why, right? So why in the world would I even want to change? So first off, it's a people problem, right? We've done things the same way for a really long time and it works. Second, it's a technology problem. Are we bringing technology to bear that adds value, that creates differentiated experiences, or are we just bringing technology that's oh yeah, I can enter my order online? And then thirdly, it's operational. So if we think about the competitive landscape that we face today, it's not 6:30 in the morning, open the branch until 4:30 in the evening, go home, right? When we think about digital transformation, we have to be able to support that order that comes in at 9 o'clock tonight for tomorrow morning. And so we have to look hard at our supply chain, and when I say supply chain, I really mean operations from the back office into the warehouse, right? How, when that order comes in, does that ticket just sit on a printer somewhere until someone comes in at 6:30 in the morning? If so, that's a problem because my truck's already on the street, right? So there's an operational challenge. So it's three things: people, the way we've always done things. How do we get their hearts and minds behind the transformation? Technology providing value to them, so there is a what's in it for me. And then thirdly, how do we operationally support that digital transformation? Let's face it, the Home Depots and Lowe's are only getting easier to work with,
yeah.
right? So when I say non-traditional competition, they're a good example of that, right?
So when a lot of people think about AI, and we've actually surveyed this in distribution, they focus more on efficiency. But what I heard in what you're describing is customer experience. Can you talk
Yeah,
about the balance of CX versus efficiency in terms of how you're thinking about it at
yeah,
Sonepar?
it's a really good point. Of course, we can't talk about AI without talking about efficiency.
Right.
I think about repetitive tasks. Anything that's a repetitive task, the act of entering an order from an email, that's a repetitive task, right? The act of reconciling an invoice for a vendor and getting payment to them, that's a repetitive task. Those are all ripe for AI, and we could talk about the details on why, but to really drive value to our customers, it's about differentiation. So how can AI provide an experience to our customers that is beyond what they would have expected from our traditional quote unquote model, right? Product recommendations are a great example. Now you might argue a really good salesperson makes product recommendations, and they should, of course. That's how we've grown up in this industry, right? Wait, hey, you're doing that job. Have you thought about, this emerging technology with smart switches or with different gear profiles, for example, in our industry, right? A great inside salesperson is going to have that conversation. But if you put AI in front,
but an average one is not.
But an average one is not, right? An
Right.
average one, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone, an average one is just taking the order, right? And put AI in front of that and let AI make those suggestions and let AI learn from the rich data of years of business that we have and potentially outside sources, right? To me, that's where AI is different than traditional models in this space is it's not limited to the amount of data sources. You don't have to aggregate data. It can look at the millions and trillions of data points and make smart recommendations. I love Amazon's a great example of this. How in the world did a book company become a company that could sell anything? Well, they figured out how to sell. First off, operationally, I think we would agree Amazon is ridiculously strong. The final mile, right? I order something,
Right.
I get it tonight. That's crazy. But then secondarily, somehow they always know what to suggest to me. And my wife especially, right? So you never check out of Amazon with a single product.
Yeah.
Or it's rare that you check out of Amazon. So put AI in front of that and make that average salesperson, first off on the phone, make that average salesperson your exceptional salesperson. Second, in your customer experience, Jonathan, to your point, differentiate for them. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you thought of that. You're right, I do need it, right? And services. I mean, distributors, we're all adding value through services today, right? How do we create more value in the supply chain through services? Have AI recommend those services, polling head. I think about polling heads and just simple stuff like you're cutting wire, you probably need polling heads, right? So
What's interesting is that the use cases you've described actually intersect efficiency and customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that better reconciliation on invoicing reduces errors, creates an efficiency that the customer sees. Turning around that order that would otherwise would have sat on the printer until the next day, turning that around tonight, that creates a better customer experience. So it's interesting where a number of these actually come together, where what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
That's absolutely correct. If we're more responsive, higher quality, and faster, it's all good for our customer.
Yeah, right. So someone has a question. I'm going to adapt it a little bit to simplify it. But Brian wants to know, are you using multiple platforms? And I think he means new platforms to integrate AI into your workforce. Or are you using existing platforms you use and adding AI to them? So, and we've had this conversation come up at our conferences before, Don, where it's like, well, are distributors going to get AI from custom AI companies? Are they going to get it from their ERP vendors? How do you see the sort of the adoption strategy? And it may be different, obviously, for a company the scale of Sonepar, but there are endless numbers of startups, but then the legacy companies have their own AI. How do you think about, how to introduce AI into your workforce at Sonepar? Maybe you don't constrain it to those selections, but just as a starting point.
Yeah, I'm really pragmatic.
Let me add a little point to that before Diane answers. So
Okay.
one of the things that Zach Cass talked about in last year's conference was AI-enabled applications. So let's talk about, Epicor as an AI-enabled application. Let's talk about this White Cup as an AI-enabled application, Continuum as an AI-enabled application, as opposed to ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, et cetera, right?
Yeah. And there's a spectrum there, of course, right? So first, let me answer it with a really pragmatic response. We should bring AI to market that adds the most value. So no different than any other technology, and you're finding the lens of my history here, right? But we need to be selective on the technologies we bring to bear, inclusive of AI, that bring the most value. And by the way, if you're just thinking about starting your AI strategy, focus on wins. There are a lot of opportunities for quick wins, and every one I talk to, I recommend don't go at it alone. And that probably in and of itself answers that question explicitly, which is there are a bunch of people out there that are thinking about these problems very focused, right? What I think of very focused, pragmatic solutions that bring value today, start there is my biggest recommendation, and learn, right? Because creating AI is extremely complex, not necessarily today as much from a technology's perspective as from a teaching and learning and tweaking perspective, right? AI is only as valuable as the algorithm that drives it. And I say algorithm, don't pick on me on the technical terms. I know we could get really detailed on just the technology of AI, and I'm not going to do that today, right? But the algorithms that drive AI are learning systems. And so if you have to teach a system alone, I would ask you, how much data, time, and expertise do you have to teach that system versus leverage a third-party solution that's fit for purpose, right? And so my recommendation is don't go at AI alone. At Sonepar, it is, as you mentioned, a hybrid approach. So we want to take advantage, Jonathan, to your point, of those AI-enabled systems. We want to take advantage of it. Epicor bringing AI into our space is terrific. We need to figure out how to drive the change and adoption and leverage of that solution. But we want to take advantage of those roadmaps and technology because they are thought leaders in the space, right? There are other solutions around product matching. For example, I use that. We use a third party for the not product matching. I'm sorry, for the recommendation engine. Third party for that. There's no reason for us to build that technology ourselves. We can learn from those solutions. So it's a hybrid approach. When it comes to generative AI specifically, we at Sonepar, as you would imagine, with our scope and scale, are extremely conservative, and we have chosen Microsoft Copilot as our solution because of the security around it as much as anything. First off, I believe Microsoft is a thought leader in the space and their partnership with ChatGPT, right? But second, we have to know our data is protected. That is, to get in the door at Sonepar, we have to know our data is protected, right? So.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions we had: is how concerned are you with protecting your proprietary data? But and the answer is very.
Yes.
So you're going with Copilot, right?
Yeah. The other thing I would say, and we talked about this at lunch, and you could find many articles on this point. If you aren't providing AI solutions, your users, your community, they're using them, right?
Yeah.
And that's almost more dangerous than trying to bring some solutions to market that you control, right? And so Copilot for us was an amazing answer to the ChatGPT phenomenon, I'll call it, right, in the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, so one area where we're seeing a lot of applications develop, including some distributors making their own, is in automated quotes and orders. So you send in the proverbial, back of the napkin handwritten note, or it's a spreadsheet, or it's a PO, but it's sometimes just a vague description, and then the software does a better job than the old. You can just use optical character recognition because the description's vague. So you need a tool that actually can discern what the customer is asking for and automatically generate a quote. What do you think of those kinds of tools? Do you think those are good opportunities for distributors? Are you using them?
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. We've been trying to automate order entry for years, right? Yeah. We've been trying to automate AP reconciliation. Think about EDI even, right? We try, and we continue to have to put people on this matching problem. And that's where AI is, to me, the magic. And it's magic because whether it's a blurb of text, unstructured, it's not a PDF, it's not an Excel spreadsheet, it's not something that a traditional OCR capability could make heads or tails of. I mean, when you look at your inside salespeople, I would wager a bet half of the orders they get are just email blurbs, right? Give me one of these, give me 5 of those, give me 6 of these. AI can discern that text and make structure out of it. And secondarily, to your point, even in structured documents, think about this, and when you think about customer experience, we'll go back to that topic. I think it's beautiful, right? We used to tell you, listen, you need to give us a cross-reference that we can rely on so we can get your order automatically in the system. We put our work on you as the customer to match our products. And if you do that, we can automate. Wait, so I have to go through all this effort of matching your 1,000 or 1,500 or 15,000 SKUs to my product list, and then we can automate? And if we don't do that, right, it comes into the order, it comes into the ERP with a product not found, and some salesperson has to go fix it.
Right.
AI can discern that blob of text and do a match on our product catalog. It's a great use of AI. So first off, instead of having to have a structured document, which are fragile, by the way, because imagine the customer PO number moves from the left to the right,
Yeah.
all of a sudden OCR breaks. Secondarily, we can, so blurb of text, unstructured document, and then, like you said, product matching, great uses of AI. Right?
And so is Sonepar developing something on its own there, or are you
Yeah,
looking?
we have, that is an area where we've invested in internal development to work to respond to quotations and enter orders more rapidly. We have a traditional OCR technology that worked very well for us that we partnered with on. It's worked very well. We do a ton of business through it, but it's extremely fragile, right? And the cost of entry is pretty high. When I say cost of entry, sorry, the number of transactions you get a month and the volume of transactions is pretty high to justify the work to do it. Whereas with AI, we're hoping to bring that cost of entry down to nothing zero, but lower.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think with this particular category of solution, the prior solutions would take top 10% of your customers minus those that run EDI or punch out. And they would do that mapping or some kind of OCR thing. And the current solutions take all of your customers, anything that comes in, any format, any way, voice, Ian mentioned some of the different formats. So it's a much larger addressable set of orders or requests for quotes.
Yeah, and I've actually seen a couple other distributors out there that have integrated it with Teams and voice, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Where they've taken it to the next level beyond just text and an email. Now, can you capture the counter person and the customer in a conversation through Teams, for example, right? And imagine the time you save for that counter person, but also how efficient your counter becomes. Going back to customer experience, right? You said this full circle. The more efficient we are, the higher quality we are. That line of 7 that used to take maybe 30 minutes, maybe that line of 7 takes 15 minutes now, right?
It'd be amazing. Yeah, well, and so if we look at that sort of customer service inside sales rep lane, people are getting easily 20-25% efficiency with these kind of solutions. As you think about the next step beyond that, agentic, what do you see happening with agentic for not just inside sales and customer service, but also for sales?
Yeah, to me, efficiency is the start, and the finish is that exceptional salesperson experience all the time.
Okay.
And so in our industry, I think we all understand electrical distribution might be more unique, but I would wager a guess in the distribution realms I've lived in my experience with Active, and it's pretty much everywhere. We have an aging workforce on the sales side, right? And our knowledge, our customer knowledge and our industrial knowledge has lived up here in those really exceptional salespeople. So how do we move from efficiency to also creating exceptional sales experience for the customer as the norm, right? Is the
mission.
Mission. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to a question because there are more software options available now than ever. There's this whole new form of technology. It's not a new technology; it's a whole new form of technology called AI. And how do you think about make versus buy decisions? And it feels like like the historically it's been smarter, in my opinion, for distributors to buy technologies than it has been to become technology developers. And that's probably always going to be the case to some degree. But there are things like this order automation where it's like, well, AI can program its own software. I mean, the other technologies weren't really like that. They didn't create themselves, right? Or new capabilities of themselves. So is that going to change the game on some of these make versus buy decisions, or just maybe change the criteria and something maybe another step you need to check off before you make a decision?
I think it's another step. I don't know that it's that big of a paradigm shift. I think
Okay.
The size of the distributor is going to make a huge difference on make versus buy, obviously.
Sure.
If I'm a $250 million distributor, I probably want to make as little as possible and
Sure.
leverage known technology, right? Of course, at the scale of Sonepar, we have a different criteria on make versus buy. I think it's a checkpoint now that we need to think about, which is, okay, with AI in the mix, does it change, again, no different than the customer automation point, does it change the cost of barrier? Does it change the cost entry point, right? If AI can generate a solution for us, right? And Microsoft is huge on citizen development, right? I'm not so huge on citizen development for some reasons, but I like the idea of engaging every associate in the problem, right? I think so. It changes the way we think about make versus buy, in that it's a checkpoint of, wait, does it change the cost of entry? Does it change the cost barrier? One warning I would have on AI I was in the software space, so I think I could say this safely out loud. One warning I have on the AI side is the vetting of technology is different.
Right.
The vetting of technology is very different. It's not a functional checklist anymore, where you get a demo and a couple of references and you actually have to dig under the covers more to understand what's behind the scenes. A lot of AI powered systems are actually not AI at all. They're advanced algorithms, right? And that's okay. If it solves the problem you have, that's okay. But understand it's different than AI, right? So, and then the other thing that worries me is when an AI provider comes without the ability to describe for me in a business language how their AI works. Vague AI is dangerous AI, right? And why is it dangerous? Because we want AI to help us make decisions, drive insights, be more productive. And if we can't have faith and trust in that system, we've actually created our own problem, right? So.
I want to return to a point you mentioned earlier on don't go it alone, and really understand what you meant by that. Are you talking about work with other folks in your buying group, association, works with vendors, consultants? What do you mean don't go it alone?
Yeah, really all of the above. So for us, I don't think Microsoft is a huge strategic partner of ours. They're engaged in our AI journey. I leverage them heavily in discussions of how to think about AI. We have other consulting partners that are AI thought leaders that we leverage. And again, if I'm a smaller distributor, I want to look at my peers and thought leaders in the space, folks like you. There's no reason to feel on an island on these topics for me, right? If you're in electrical industry, and reach out to a plumbing distributor, reach out to a building materials distributor, right? There's other opportunities that we really shouldn't think of just us on an island when we look at AI and capabilities, right?
It's an interesting point when we look at distribution. There really is not anything comparable to like a Bell Labs in the telecom world. And the Bell Labs had how many Nobel Prize winners back in the day? I mean, it was almost academic, outpost, and it was generating all kinds of technology for the industry. But there's really nothing like that in distribution. I mean, even you as top 5 largest distributors in the country, you have some R&D budget, but it drops off pretty quickly relative to other sectors like healthcare, finance, telecom, et cetera.
And that's why I think the don't go at it alone is so important. That there are people out there spending money to solve problems that you can leverage, right?
So what does it look like when you say don't go it alone and one of your technology vendors? Is it at a users group you and others are probing, pushing? What does it look like with the vendors?
Yeah, in the vendor space, typically you have 2 influence points at point of sale and then through users groups, right? And the users groups are phenomenal because they create a massive momentum, right? With the and of course, and I was in the software space, so don't throw any stones at me. But that's the reality. Your 2 biggest levers are at point of sale and at through those user groups. So absolutely, with your vendors, your current vendors should be thinking of and have a strategy around AI, just like we should be thinking of and have a strategy around AI. And I think your user groups are the perfect opportunity to push for and get answers and understand that. Hopefully their strategy isn't just a micro strategy of their solution, but it's also thinking about the AI landscape. I think about Copilot as an example. If you're bringing AI or solutions to bear that cannot integrate to or work within Copilot, that's a problem for me, right? I want Copilot to be the blanket, right, of AI for Sonepar. So.
I want to shift slightly here. You've got a long background in digital transformation, DX. This is a two-part thought. One, which is, how do you think differently about DX where AI is part of what you want to get to? And then how do you think about AI as part of the process of DX? Those are two different questions.
Yeah. So, and I would say we are early in our thinking here. So I'll be fully transparent there, right? We've traditionally looked at AI to solve micro problems, to show momentum and get progress, right? And so to think about AI in the broader DX, other than my vision for your sales experience or your online experience in the omni channel, I don't know that we've put pen to paper on that. I know it's an area where we have to think differently, right? So a really good example we were just talking about earlier in our conversation, a customer journey can be a living organism now, right? It doesn't have to be a static. The customer came online, showed interest in this product. Because of the interest in this product, we go to workflow, right? That workflow has had to be a defined thing in the past. Imagine now how AI could actually power that workflow and adjust that workflow based on future customer behavior or customers like that, right? So those are the thoughts that we have to put in to answer that DX question. And I would say we're really early in our thought process in that regard, right? Which is, instead of thinking of static customer journeys, how do we think of that journey as a living organism that is very relevant to that customer, right?
But in part of your answer is, how do we start with the business problem?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So we have a question.
And when we think about business problem, has that business problem, and maybe not problem, but has the value changed because of what AI can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got a couple of really interesting, very broad questions from Kevin, who wants to know, does AI change the value relationship between the customer and the distributor? And will AI change the value relationship between the manufacturers and the customers?
Yeah, I think all of them are, the DX topic in generally, starting with the second question, and then I'll come to the first question.
Yeah.
I think the DX topic generally has opened up a more direct channel for the customers to the manufacturers. Right? Now, the good news for us as distributors is very few customers want to deal with 77 manufacturers.
Right.
Or come to us and get the mix, right? So the good news is the mix opportunity still exists for us, but in a one-off, or if you think about large project orders, whether it be gear or lighting for us, DX has opened up the risk of that direct relationship. And AI, again, if AI is streamlining and making it easier for the manufacturer to work with the customer directly, it's taking that barrier of entry the manufacturers traditionally faced to deal with the customer directly. And I think we all know, okay, this is a Donism. Let's not make it fact. This is Don's view of the world. Manufacturers today would be perfectly happy to own the customer relationship if they could, right? So that's the DX risk. AI just makes it a lower cost barrier again, right? And so, sorry, I started with the second question first. Remind me of the first question.
Does AI change the value relationship between the customer and the distributor?
I believe absolutely, because we can, and if we go back to just my exceptional salesperson example, more efficient, right? More efficient, more responsive, higher quality. Absolutely. Yes. Now, do they stop? Let's flip that on its head in a negative way. So that was my optimistic response. My pessimistic response is, does AI give them a channel where we are no longer the experts and they go around us? That's why, in my mind, we have to start with, wait, let's stop worrying about our traditional competitors and think about the non-traditional competitors. Sure. And I believe AI broadens the non-traditional non-traditional competitive landscape.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, in the case of electrical, whether it's on the construction side or the automation side, channel adds a lot of value. Distribution adds a lot of value in the process. So,
yeah, and we continue to find new ways to add value. Absolutely, yes.
yeah. Right. So we have another question.
But I think that's my message is let's continue to find those ways to add value, thinking about the broader scope of these technologies, right?
Right. Go ahead, Jonathan.
We have another question. Have there been any conversations on how to upskill the workforce to collaborate effectively with AI solutions?
It's interesting you asked that. The DX problem, I go to people as the first problem, and not in a negative way. Please don't take that way, right? But the first thing we have to do is make sure that our associates are capable of leveraging the technologies. Now, and this is where the paradigm of AI comes in. If it's a machine learning algorithm that gives you product recommendations, that's pretty straightforward from an adoption perspective, right? However, if we flip that now and say it's this generative technology that is the sales assistant that makes you the exceptional salesperson, the first thing we have to do is help them understand how to query the system in a meaningful way, right? We launched a proof of concept to answer the question of the day. We have hundreds of analysts running around our organization that their responsibility is to answer the question of the day, right? And for some reason, in all my years in distribution, the question of the day is never the same. Right now, today the question of the day is tariffs, of course, right? But two years ago, the question of the day was what's inflation doing versus real growth, right? The question of the day changes every single day, and so we've got all these analysts running around to make sure we can answer and adequately serve the business on the question of the day. So we launched a proof of concept, which was just type into AI the question of the day. Well, sounds wonderful from a technologist perspective, but then you realize if you don't know how to query AI, it's no better than, it's actually worse than having an analyst because it doesn't know what to make of your query, right? Yeah. So change management, people leadership. As we roll out these technologies, every one of them has to have a change management adoption program around it to help upskill the associates. The other thing that does, by the way, is it removes the fear and the threat from the associate. We're not taking anybody's job away. We're hopefully making your job better. Right.
Are you getting much fear of AI? I mean, there's a lot of talk about, job risk, et cetera. How do you manage through that?
My cybersecurity team's scared to death of AI.
Yeah.
But from a broad associate,
different reason, right?
From a broad associate perspective, I see more positive energy and desire, a thirst for what are we doing with this and can I leverage it? I would say we have way more ideas and opportunities from the associate base than we can execute on. Right? Wow. And they're hearing about AI everywhere. Everywhere they go, every vendor's talking about AI. It's everywhere, right? So,
hey Don, when you look at specific use cases in a distributor, I mean, we talked about some that are customer facing, but what about things like slotting or delivery management or rebate management? I mean, it feels like AI can really change the game in these areas.
Yeah, I think any repetitive task. So let me start with rebate management, for example. A terrific opportunity to, first off, be more efficient in the way we file for and get rebates, and second, potentially find rebate opportunities, right? So terrific opportunities in areas like that. Slotting is a great example. My favorite thing to do is walk in a warehouse and go to the best location in the warehouse and see how long that product's been sitting there, right? Because we traditionally do not do an effective job of dynamic slotting. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, by the way, when we think about operations. Knowing where the product is can be as efficient as reslotting products sometimes, right? What are the technologies to support getting the associate to the right place at the right time? There's a lot that goes into that slotting conversation. But if we can do an effective job of slotting, there's absolute efficiency to be gained in the warehouse. And by the way, also quality to get the right product to the customer at the right time. So slotting is a terrific use of AI to watch the trends. Traditionally we do slotting on a yearly basis. Could you make slotting a weekly thing like cycle counting? Right, where we're actually looking at what's in our warehouse and where it is or maybe it's dynamic slotting on receipt potentially because of trends that it's seeing. I think collections is another great example when we think about working capital management on the AR side. we've tended to use aggregate AR metrics to collect because the systems we had couldn't handle the data points we talked about. So days to pay was right. Days to pay, last payment, last amount, aging tickets. Those are the things we would tend to look at to create a collection strategy. Well, with AI, we can look at the broad data set, right? So every invoice, every incoming order, quotations won, product mix bought, and now you can start to look at the whole customer picture and make it and look for a blip and a problem coming versus a problem at hand, right?
Yeah, I guess theoretically, you could even look at things like the risk beyond the individual contractor. What's the risk to the general contractor they're working for, or the business, or the owner of the project, or the nature of the financing for the mechanics lane. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you could factor into it automatically that today you'd have to single out, and you're just never going to do it for practical reasons, right?
Truck routing is another great example. Most of our truck routes are in our industry, and I know a couple of adjacent industries are mandated by restrictions on the route. I have to be there before 7 a.m. If it's a school, I have to be there between 9 and 2, right? So those constraints tend to, and the human can look at that list of tickets for their manifest and make those decisions really quite rapidly, especially in an experienced driver, right? How can a system look at all those data points and more effectively leverage our fleet as a differentiator, right?
What I love about both the slotting and the routing, these harken back to classic AI optimization problems. So a lot of what we hear in generative AI is, oh, look at this cool letter that it wrote for me, or look at this cool product content, or whatever. I mean, there's all these different use cases. These are classic optimization problems. And as Ian now knows, if I have 10 locations, how many different choices do I have to do 10 locations on routing?
I can't remember. It's millions, right?
It's 3.6 million, right?
Yeah, right.
And then slotting is going to be even way more combinatorial.
Right.
And because it's so combinatorially large, how often do companies redo their slotting? Well, you can imagine if that cost were not so great, or if it were outsourced to a computer, you might do something more like dynamic slotting.
Yeah, and again, on the slotting topic, it's interesting to me. Having been in a warehouse a long time now, we won't age myself, but you have to have, when we go back to the operational point of DX, you have to have the capabilities behind the scenes to make sure the associates are driven effectively still, right? If you have someone walking around with a paper pick ticket, dynamic slotting is probably not where you should start, right? So there's the operational side we have to look at first. So.
Yeah, these delivery numbers they just blow my mind. So I'm reading this book by Brian Greene, who's a physicist, and he says, like a normal 52 card deck, so when you shuffle it, it can come out in all kinds of different orders, right? And he says if you had all 8 billion people on the planet right now start shuffling cards, and they each shuffled one deck per second, it would be 50 quadrillion years before the same order of cards came out again. Which, look, go ask ChatGPT. It's true. It's so you can imagine now in a warehouse with all the different places you can put material, or all the different delivery locations you can go to, the opportunity for automation that AI can bring is just extraordinary, right? And the same is true for evaluating credit for customers or looking at sales opportunities. I mean, just reducing these numbers through technology down towards something more optimal just has so much potential for distributors. Hey, Don, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about at our upcoming conference in June?
Yeah, first, appreciate the opportunity to be there. I'm excited. In June, it will be a pragmatic approach to how to bring AI to life with strategy and execution for a distributor. And we will have some real use cases from Sonepar involved as a how did we as well. So.
Well, that's going to be fun. I mean, we're really looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us. Again, that's June 24th through 26th in Chicago. And before then, we do have, speaking of inventory planning, We've got a technology leader panel right now. We've got Greg Hartunian from Epicor. We've got a couple of other people who are going to be joining us. And on April 2nd, from noon Eastern to 1 Eastern or 9 to 10 Pacific, inventory planning during uncertain times. We're going to talk about things like tariffs and these supply chain black swan events that keep hitting, and things like AI, et cetera. So you don't want to miss that conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really interesting. And John has said, John Weinberg, thanks everyone. Really interesting. John, thank you for joining us. Thanks to everyone else for joining us, but mostly Don, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Really appreciate y'all. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you soon, everyone. We'll see you at the next program from Distribution Strategy Group. Bye now.